first?
Well, I'll intro and then I'll just kind of like. Well, you want to? I'll go right.
First, about Sharmeen, like among us, I never like talked to you before, so to Sharmeen before.
We're live streaming right now, though. So do you want to live stream talking?
Okay.
All right. Well, we are live, and welcome to this Facebook live stream. Whoever's chiming in right now, I mean, if you're in the U.S. and you woke up after Sahur at this time, like you could see, like I wasn't planning on waking up for another 2 to 3 hours. But you know, now you're up, you're good to go. So appreciate everybody coming in today and discussing this COVID-19 situation, the pandemic that everyone's been under. We have 3 panelists on today representing various sectors who are contributing to the relief efforts. Mohammed Mustafa, Rehan Rahman, and Sharmeen Shah Jahan. So I'm gonna give the mic to Mohammed first, because he's the person that the people here on this channel are most familiar with, because he was a previous guest on episode 14, just released about a couple of weeks ago, I think it was. So Mohammed, why don't you introduce yourself, tell the audience, whoever familiar with you, about who you are, what organizations you're representing today, and we'll go from there.
All right, so my name is Mohammed, and today I will be talk about the tech industry and also some part of the food industry from Bangladesh and plus from US. So I'm representing from my e-commerce. It's a fashion base. It's called Chalmuri. It's based in Columbus, Ohio. And also about one more project is called like Kotha. It's a social plus lifestyle app that we just started like in Bangladesh this year. So, and I also co-own Crimson Cup. It's also a coffee franchise from US, and we are now operating like in Bangladesh. And yeah, that's about it. So
cool. All right, and Sharmeen, you're up next. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Right, so I'm Sharmeen Shah Jahan. I'm wearing 2 hats today. So I'm elected official, city council member, also known as village trustee at the village of Hanover Park, which is a suburb of the city of Chicago. And in Bangladesh, I've recently been appointed to be Associate Director for Volunteers for Bangladesh, which focuses on education in the rural areas of Bangladesh.
All right. And Rehan?
Hi everyone, this is Rehan. Today I'll be talking about the food industry, of course, being a co-owner and a director of Crimson Cup. Also, I'd like to talk a little bit about the medical and the dental industry, which I'm a part of. So I work with doctors, dentists, and I supply dental products to them. So we'd like to talk about how the situation has affected the food industry and also the dental industry as well.
Right. So today, I know 2 of us here in the United States. I'm not going to talk because I haven't done anything for COVID-19 other than staying at home. I'm doing my part to flatten the curve, but you know, there's probably a different angle of how COVID-19 is being handled in Bangladesh versus the United States. We have different situations. So, anyways, Sharmeen, I want to start with you. You one of the hats you wear is that you are a village trustee. Is that the right position? And so those of you guys who aren't familiar, a village is like in the Chicagoland area. A village is like a suburb, right? It's like a city that's part of the greater metroplex, but it's a smaller city. So anyways, why don't you talk a little bit about the issues you guys at your village are dealing with, specifically with regards to COVID-19, and like what efforts you guys are making there?
I think a lot of the issues that we're dealing with is universal to all over the world. So first of all, you know, it's a health issue. It's something that we all as a community need to work together. So one of the things that we've been doing at the state of Illinois is, you know, once the governor put in the lockdown, not lockdown necessarily, but the stay in home is the specific term. A lot of people had to alter their lives. I think a lot of people lost their jobs. One of the things was that restaurants and a lot of entertainment sectors, they had to, you know, completely alter the way that they do business. One major issue we have is that it's a lot of mom and pop shops, a lot of people who they weren't as tech savvy. So I think the biggest problem that we're probably dealing with, or one of the biggest problems, is the digital divide that's coming up because of COVID-19. So the mom and pop shops were not, connected to the to Uber Eats and Grubhub, some of these other delivery services. They had to learn on the fly. A lot of them are immigrant owned, so for them there is a language barrier to learning that. So that's one issue that our businesses are dealing with. And then the other issue for our residents is that a lot of people within Hanover Park, they work in a lot of these sectors where they're out of a job basically. And so at this point, one of the things that we've been trying to help them with is rental assistance with, not we as the village, but we as an elected officials, we're connecting them with other agencies for rental assistance, food assistance, and any other help that they may need. The one thing that the governor has worked on, and that ripples into our village because we provide the water for our residents, is that utilities, he's asking everyone to defer utilities until at least 2 to 3 months. And so that's what we've done. We've told our residents and our businesses that if they're not able to pay the utilities, that they have to defer it until this emergency dies down a little bit. And so, so those are some of the things, debt collection, we've paused on that too. So now I think our conversation is, it's been 2 months. A lot of people, have lost their jobs, and yes, they don't have to pay the utilities and the rent right now, but it is accumulating. They still have to pay it at some point. And so how can we lessen that burden? So that once that 3 months comes up, it's not that they have the sticker shock of paying 3 months of rent, at once. So I'm looking into other government agencies that are providing rental assistance. We're looking at our own budget to see what we can do to put some kind of program together for, for rental assistance. And then also the other part of it is Illinois has the most local governments in all of the United States, in all of the states. So I think we have close to 7,000 local governments. So while our city is focused on, providing police and fire and those kinds of safety, the village itself specifically is not taking care of, some of the social needs. There's a township that does that, and then there's also other agencies like the schools that are providing meals for for their students and things like that. So one of the things that I'm trying to do is help our residents understand where they can get their help, because there's just so many things that so many different organizations are doing right now. So hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, I have one quick follow up. So in the news we see that. So would you say your citizens, for the most part? I understand that there seems to be, obviously there's concern. The rent is being suspended right now, but they've lost their jobs, right? Mm-hmm. And I assume some of them, like if your business shuts down, it's not something where if you want to restart it, you're going to be up and running like right away too, right?
Yeah.
You're furloughed, it might be a little different because you can go back. You could, there's a kind of, and then it's almost, it shouldn't be that different. But like there's a sentiment in certain groups around the country. You're seeing people protesting in various ways, saying that we need to open the economy back up. We need to go back to work and whatnot. Are you seeing that? Are you guys getting any kind of reaction like that in your own village, that people wanting to like pushing back and wanting to open back the economy, going back to work, and just saying, we'll just deal with it?
No, in our particular city, it seems that, people's primary concern right now is daily living, right? So people who have lost their jobs, how do I make sure, one, I get another job, and how do I make sure, I'm able to pay the bills that are owed? And I think that's the major issue here in terms of, the reopening program. That's of course something that's, coordinated with the state. The state is dictating a lot of that. And they are, we went into a new stay-at-home order as of yesterday, and some of the restrictions were lifted. Some of the non-essential businesses can operate on a curbside and to-go basis. So there is an evolution in terms of how we are reopening. But yeah, it's not something I think that you're going to flip a switch and we're just going to go back to the way things were before March 17th.
Gotcha. And Rehan, why don't you talk a little bit about the landscape in Bangladesh? What are you guys seeing there? Like, what's the situation? Just give everybody who's not familiar with the scenario of COVID-19 in Bangladesh a little overview of how things are going.
Well, at this point, it's a bit worrying as the number of people that are being infected are increasing every day. And we don't know when things are going to open or the lockdown is going to ease. So we really don't know when is it going to stop. That's the fear. I mean, if you tell me to stay at home for 60 days, I know 60 days or 90 days. But now we don't know as to how long will this go on for. So that's one problem. And right now, the biggest problem we face is with our cafes. These are all closed right now, but yet the landlords are asking for rents, and no one's going to compromise on rents. So that is going to be a big issue for us, and discussions have started between me and my partners as to whether we should think of closing down some of the shops that we have. So because people are scared to, people won't be able to come out of their houses even if we do open the cafes. That's one aspect of one industry. The other industry that I deal with is the dental industry. So the dentist, they're all sitting at home, cannot go out because there are 12,000 dentists in Bangladesh. All right, so and 80% of them live on a monthly basis. Like their families, their households live on the monthly income that comes from the dental chambers of those particular dentists. So these people are all at home and cannot go out, cannot even go to their clinics to look after patients. It's quite a scary situation right now. And what we have been hearing from people that are in position to know something. So we think that the number of patients, the number of people that are being infected is going to increase in the coming months as well. So that is the current situation.
Would you now? I don't know. I don't know how the situation is with like delivery services. Have you guys considered some kind of options for pickup, curbside pickup, or delivery for? Like, I don't think coffee is something you get delivered, but like I do know of cafes, for example, who have gone to a more like curbside service, touchless pickup and stuff. Is that something you've considered for Crimson Cup?
Yeah, of course we did. Also, I think towards the end of our March 1928, when we started closing down the cafes, we did keep our delivery services on, but it wasn't even 10% of the sales that we got during the normal times. Because you'll have to understand, Bangladeshi market is very, very different from the US or the UK market. The Bangladeshi market, the cafes are successful because people want to come in and hang out. So the coffee becomes a byproduct. The most important factor that we sell is hangouts between friends, between couples. So that is gone. 80% of your business is gone as far as coffee shops are concerned. So yeah, we can open for deliveries, and we will. Me and Mohammed were actually discussing, we will in probably a few weeks, but it won't solve our problems. It won't bring in even, I don't think even 20% of the sales that we used to do.
Right. And Mohammed, why don't you talk a little bit about maybe other venture, Jalmuri, Kota? What are you guys doing there as far as with some of the COVID-19 issues?
So basically, what's going on like in Bangladesh now is that many starters are like still like struggling because like from the software industry, because they just like started, and there are no revenue streams. And so what everyone is doing now is that they are shifting their business focus towards from their main strategy towards like to other services. Like now all the commerces are going towards like delivering the grocery items or doing the food delivery and everything, right? So this is so that's like a more like a short-term strategy that people are doing. So what we're doing from Kotha and from Chalmers is we're trying to also do the same thing, and we're trying to like we just started a service for a grocery now. And but how different we're trying to do is that we are communicating with the farmers here, like from the northern part of like Bangladesh, and trying to help them to give them like a fair price and buying products from them, and then starting like in Dhaka to deliver. So we have taken like few steps to help a few of the farmers also, and also working for the medical sector also. So maybe affiliating with a few of the hospitals and also a few of the diagnosis centers, so we can give some service through that. So Kotha is like a social app. It's just like Facebook or maybe like Instagram. But now we have to do those like services which we are not supposed to do, just to now survive in this time of the crisis. So
As far as the casualties of people, like Charmaine talked about in the United States, it's because of people losing their jobs. I don't know, but in the United States, we don't have people, as far as we know, dying yet of like starvation. They're dying of like, if they die, it's because of COVID-19, right? What is the situation in Bangladesh? Are there like indirect deaths due to COVID-19? Mohammed just got muted. Rehan, why don't you answer that question?
All right. So not yet. People are not yet dying of starvation, at least not in the cities or small towns. Maybe in the villages they are, and we don't know. Maybe in the smaller villages they are. But right now, what people are most afraid of is losing jobs. Because every other day we get a call from somebody asking if there is a job available for them to do. So people are losing jobs, and that has not yet happened. People are not yet dying from starvation, but yeah, the only problem over here, people are losing jobs, and then the consequences might be that the consequences in the near future might be people not having enough food or enough things to survive by. So people are only right now dying of COVID, and in Bangladesh, I read a report day before yesterday. I think the percentage of death is Bangladesh is the leading in South Asia in terms of the percentage of death from COVID.
Okay, what I was going to ask.
Yeah, sorry. One thing I wanted to just say is that it just shows the difference between our government systems, because in the US, we have a lot of government agencies that make sure that people are not starving. So that helps to address that issue. Whereas in Bangladesh, I think people rely more on the NGOs for the social services and, for these kinds of situations. So I would be curious to see how it plays out down the road.
No, so if I might add, the government is doing the bit. I think the government has, since the last 1 month, have started giving out, basic food like rice and dal and stuff like that. So basic food they've started giving out. Now, the controversy is, so the government's giving them out, but is it really going to the needy places? So that is where the problem lies. The government's doing their bit, but I think the execution is where I think we are lacking a little bit.
Is it distributing through the national government, or is it through their local agencies that's being distributed? Because for us, all of the distributions through the local, so that makes it a little bit more direct, with the residents that are impacted.
Yeah, so the government right now, the national government have distributed and given the local member of parliaments in charge. They have put them in charge of their particular districts. So then from the national government, the MPs are dealing with that, and the MPs probably lay it on to the local party, the ruling party, to handle the distribution of the food.
And just to translate, the MPs are like our congressional representatives, right? So it would still be congressional response.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify, because for us, there's a difference between the national response and the local response. And so our national response is not, their roles are slightly different. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that, because I think that is a unique difference between our countries.
Yeah, we are heavily centralized. The decentralization is not much. A heavily centralized government.
I wanted to ask you a follow-up question, Rehan, as well. You mentioned the village, like the villages, and so about a month, I think 6 weeks ago, because like a lot of people in America, we have thought that this pandemic, even before the pandemic, it seems like the way things are going, we have so much debt in this country that eventually this bubble is just gonna bust, and then
Yeah.
it'll just crumble, right? And if you think about any like empire, there's always like a timeline. America's been going
Yeah.
for like what 200 and I don't know 40 some years now. I don't know off the top of
Yeah.
my head, something like that, right? Um, and so it's very rare that an empire would go this long, if not longer. And the thing of it is, my wife and I were talking about maybe we'd be better off because when something like this happens, I would think without knowing anything else that like a village in Bangladesh would be
Yeah.
a good place to be because you already
Yeah.
you're living off the land, right?
Yeah.
You have your own, you're farming your own crops,
Yeah.
everything's kind of within a closed system, so to speak,
Yeah.
right? As long as you
Yeah.
block it in. Have you found that to be the case? Like, but you say that people are being affected in the villages, but from a point of view of starvation, like, would they be safe? You think because they're already living off the land or self-sustaining? That's the impression I would have. But I would like you guys are there. Could you like correct any assumptions that I had that are like maybe incorrect?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are farming their own land and producing their own food, but a lot of their livelihood depends on being able to sell that food or that vegetable to Dhaka. So bring that from the village to the Dhaka. That they're not being able to do because they have closed down all the transportation routes and buses, trains, etc. So they're not able to come to Dhaka to sell these. So while they might be able to survive on just producing their own food, you'll have to see in a village, not everyone produces their own food. There are many people who are doing many different kind of jobs. So what about them? They will be sufferers as well. So and they might whereas the other villages are concerned who produce their own food, they might be able to just survive off food, but they won't have any money because who are they going to sell it to? No one's going to buy them if they cannot bring it to Dhaka or Chittagong or the bigger cities.
Right. Mohammed, would you say that so Bangladesh, like I was just there a few months ago, right? And I saw a drone, somebody sent me a drone footage of Dhaka now. It's like dead, it's like a ghost town.
Yeah.
How much of it do you think either of you guys could answer this is like were people afraid, like were people like resistant to like go to a lockdown? Was there a pushback originally? Because that's just like not within our normal habits. Because sometimes we like our I get the impression our people are very much like this is what we always do. Why would we change things up? It'll just work itself out. Or do you think when there was a lockdown announced, people were like, okay, we'll listen? What was the initial reaction based upon the general social nature of Bangladeshis?
So like what happened in like Dhaka is that so when this whole thing was happening in US, like China, so people here were not that much aware of it, and they were not actually willing to accept that we have to stay inside and the whole lockdown will happen, right? So eventually, like from last month, then when there was a few deaths and more cases were increasing, so then people they started like taking it like more seriously, you know. So what I feel is that there will be a huge like a lifestyle change now because people are still not willing to accept that they have to face this for a while. Because how we have been dealing our life in 2 months back is now like how we are now. This will continue at least for the next 6 months or maybe like 8 months at least, like until there is like a vaccine coming out, right? So business wise or like people like socially, this has affected people. People are like losing jobs here too. So and like in US, I just heard from like Ohio that the government is giving like a lot of like benefits to the businesses for the unemployment. You know, they're also providing the unemployment benefits. They just also people are also applying for the loans also like the short term or maybe the long term loans. So we have those like in Bangladesh, but as Rehan said, like the implementation has not been done properly. So like people will not take this lockdown like as like how people are taking the US like more positively, because people are like losing jobs, and like already this month majority of them has not received their salary yet, so already they are being fired. Like even like me and Rehan, like we also we don't know like how we will do like next month with our employees, right? So when you have no money coming in the house, so how will they take it positively? So people like will like burst very badly already in the RNG sector, the governments, like who like lives by their daily wages, right? So they are like already too frustrated, and the government has been like pressurized to open the governments like the factories, and that doesn't that is completely opposite to social distancing, so and we don't know what will happen. So the government is just opening like today, and they're just like closing it tomorrow. So they are not in a good shape, and they are not taking all the right decisions, but it's actually they have to decide between like hunger or they will die, if they put them into like a lockdown, then these people will be losing jobs. And if they just let them go outside, then there will be like more viruses being spread. So they are in that dilemma now, what to do. So but yeah, so and also the work pressure is also going up for many people, like especially for the banking sector, the software industry, and everything, because people are now working like more hours now. So that is also being frustration being coming in like slowly. So
No,
let's see what happens. So
people who are working, is it still expected they go to the office, or do you guys have a work from home kind of culture? Like, is it easy? Are a lot of jobs able people? Do they let them work from home, or do they have to go to the office? People who are still working.
no, it's from home. Everything is from home now. So
Okay.
even the government, like the public offices are like all closed also.
Okay.
So there's nothing is open now. So actually, they just extended to May 15th today. So um, like the whole lockdown will happen. But like there is thing going on like this, but still people are going out. That's the point. Like just imagine, like we're talking about the food delivery businesses and the grocery deliveries. So it's not that systematic. Like the supply chain management is not that systematic like in Bangladesh yet.
Yeah.
So like and a lot of like the farmers, like the garments industries, like those small businesses, SMEs into like handcrafts, things, they are not being able to produce, number one, and even if they produce, there is no logistics that has been laid out by the government. So things are pretty bad now, but let's see what happens. So
Okay. What was I gonna? So you guys just had. So I actually, I'll admit, something to you guys. I didn't know what Bengali New Year was. Like, what Charmin? Remember that post you made? I was like, "What y'all dressed up for?" And she was like, Bengali New Year." And I'm like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
That's what happens when you like live your entire life in the United, like most of your life in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
Did
So
I?
'cause I remember, I remember I saw Facebook posts from my cousins. They were like, and I could, they would like write in Bangla but in English, like English
Yeah.
script, in the Latin
Right.
script. And I was like, they're upset about something. They're like, oh, they're used to going out on Bengali New Year, I think it was.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now, so but I assume that was like a very depressing time, that you have Bengali New Year, but you couldn't go out and do anything,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah. Bengali New Year happened, and everyone was at home, which
yeah,
is really odd. I mean, which is something bad must have had happened
right.
for that to taken place. And one more thing is, in about 20 days we'll have Eid,
Yeah.
and during Eid no one will go out. Everyone will stay home. That will be even worse. That'll be
Well,
even
I do. Mohammed said that the extent you guys are extended out to like May 15th, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So that if you like, and when you said May 15th, I was like, that's right before Eid. So
Yeah.
I don't know if they're
Eventually,
gonna, yeah,
yeah,
they'll
it'll go
extend it
on to Eid.
again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They'll and I think right now we're May, right? And I think it's pretty much like this is the first Eid that like it's like you just don't do anything. You literally just I mean, I think the only thing is that we don't gotta deal with like, and we were looking forward to it in America because it was gonna be a long weekend.
mm.
Mahin, you cut out.
Yeah, he's not here. So
Yeah.
the
But I can
host
go
has
off
been.
what he was saying. We can keep
Yeah.
going. So
Yeah.
I think one of the issues in the US is that because Islam is not a majority religion, we don't get the day off automatically. And so this is a unique situation where Eid would fall on a long weekend, and everybody would have that day off. And I think everybody had already made plans, travel plans, in terms of going to see their families or celebrating in a way that you guys might be used to in Bangladesh. And so I think that's one of the things that we're grappling with here, because it was such a unique place for us to, or unique time, for us to all come together. And all of a sudden now we're not going to do that anymore. In fact, it's going to drastically the other way, whereas, before we would celebrate with, he's coming back. So before we would celebrate, with our own community, wherever we were, on the day of Eid, that's just something that we just have to get through as one of the other sacrifices, that we have to make, is that even though it's on a long weekend, unfortunately, we won't be able to celebrate the way we were looking forward to for the last year.
For us, it's Eid holidays usually run from 1 week to 10 days. So people will go out, have fun, visit places of friends, relatives for about a week to 10 days, and have food, meet. And a big part of Eid is, being able to hug each other.
Yeah.
And during these times of social distancing, I was talking to one of my friends yesterday, and he's saying, I think for about a couple of years, I think handshake is out of the world. I mean, no one's going to be handshaking anymore, and forget hugs. So big part of the culture, big part of Eid will go out. And I don't know if we are pretty sure that the lockdown over here is going to be extended even after Eid, and we just have to stay home and we greet each other through video conferencing.
I know. I think one of the things you mentioned about not being able to hug each other for a couple of years, I think that's going to translate in terms of, changing our cultural norms. For example, in the US, whenever we go into a meeting, we handshake, right? And that's just completely natural. You just reach out your hand to do that. And that's something we're not going to be doing. And so the CDC actually came out with a guideline that said, the CDC is, our Center for Disease Control. And they said you do an elbow pump. So you use your elbow and you go like this to replace the that touch point. So we just have to completely adapt and change the way, even just little basic things that we do things. So it is interesting how, it's happening so drastically. Okay, he's restarting his computer, by the way, so it'll take him a couple more minutes.
I know. Yeah, even when we in Bangladesh, we heard of the virus now spreading outside China and going to Italy and then Spain. So we started social distancing ourselves, and you talk about the elbow bumps, and we started doing all that. We started, rather than handshakes, you fight your instincts, not shake hands and just wave. So we started doing all that. We started maintaining distances from each other. So we started doing all that, and I guess that will be, until a vaccine comes out, and that will be a part of everyone's life. Now everyone's really hooked on to those Oxford, the vaccine that those Oxford scientists created, and let's see, when the vaccine comes out, hopefully things will get normal.
I think there's several throughout the world that have promising. It seems like they're they seem like they might be working out. The main issue is there's a system in place to do trials and make sure that they're working properly, and we're just fighting against time right now, because pulling together a vaccine, yes, it might not take as long, but just going through that whole process is something that we're all trying to speed it up, but at the same time maintain the integrity of the whole scientific process too. So I'm hoping, I think we're all hoping that once that comes through, then we can start to bring back some of our old lifestyles, like your coffee hangout.
Coffee hangouts. We are one business that social distancing really will have an effect on, because like I said, in Bangladesh, people do come to hang out, and coffee is just like in the US, probably you walk into a Starbucks at 7 a.m., you will see a huge queue. Over here, it's not that. People will sit down, chat with each other over a cup of coffee. And Mahin's back. Welcome back.
Oh, so you guys are still able to keep going?
Yeah, we
Yes.
were.
Okay,
I don't
good.
think it recorded because you were recording, but we just kept on going.
It is. I'm gonna hit record again now. So the thing is, I think it's on Facebook. We're still streaming live. This live stream never stopped then.
No, it didn't. It kept
Okay. So I think there should be a way to like just say, because I actually accidentally started the recording like 5 minutes late when Charmaine was talking originally. But I think if we have a stream on Facebook, anyways, yeah, just sorry to interrupt. Just keep going with whatever y'all were saying. I'll jump in.
We were filling time. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I was gonna ask Charmaine was the issue of, so I get a lot of like WhatsApp messages about like how different doctors are saying different things, how it's really not that bad. There's herd immunity, things of that sort. I know you talked about it within your own village, you haven't seen it, but within the state, are you seeing like people are like antsy, or like where people are getting consumed by too much noise as far as in the media, and they actually think it's some kind of like government conspiracy?
Yeah, so I think we were fine until recently. Yesterday, there was some protests where, there are individuals who thought it was too much government interference. The United States has a culture of individualism, and this is something that is completely against the grain in that sense. And so yeah, I mean, people have not, that's not our lifestyle. That's not our culture within the US. We're always, and I think globally, it's, we've all evolved to a point of being interconnected and just being on the go so much that it's been 40 some days that we've all been in quarantine. We've all been staying home. And so I think that plus a lot of, as we had mentioned earlier, a lot of people have lost their jobs. They're, concerned about how they're going to continue to function long term. So I think all of those combined is kind of boiling over, and that, that's kind of what you saw within the state of Illinois. I think some of those protests were even in the city of Chicago too, where they're enforcing the social distancing, and they're enforcing the stay at home a lot more than some other parts of Illinois.
Right. How much of it do you think of what's being politicized? I mean, like this whole, it's an election year, right? A federal election year. So how, like if this was happening like a year ago, would you see things much different as far as how the politics, how it's being politicized in that sense? Definitely.
So it's both federal, state, and local elections are coming up in April of 2021. So all of that combined, whoever is in office, including myself, everyone's kind of thinking about, that's something that's on the side, right? Where you're thinking about how is this going to impact our ability to maintain the integrity of our democracy? Because there's places like the state of Ohio who have postponed their elections until June. We ended up having our elections in March against a lot of health experts' advice. And so those kinds of things, it does weigh on people as they're making those decisions. I think the federal, the national electoral, because it's a presidential year, that's the other issue too. And whenever it's a presidential year, a lot more people tune in, a lot more people are going out to vote. And so that's something else, that's people who are elected kind of think through. So I think there is some noise, and I think just the way the United States is right now is very fragmented in terms of the political divide, and that is showing through. But at the same time, we're all dealing with this pandemic. Just because there's that political divide doesn't mean that the pandemic's not going to continue. And so that reality, I think, forced a lot of people to just, even with all of that, baggage, they still try to come together and work together. Like for example, we passed the CARES Act, which is the biggest stimulus package in, I don't know, maybe it's a large stimulus package basically, and although there's a lot of things in there that seem like it's supporting, larger corporations and things like that. There is also, help for the, you know, the citizens of this country as well as smaller businesses. So I think they're working together, and that noise is there, and that's just something we have to push through.
So I've seen a difference in the way certain states are going. So Ohio's gotten a lot of credit, right? We're both native Ohioans, even though we live in Illinois now, right? Even people who like disagree with Mike DeWine's politics in general, I think everybody's on like really happy with how he's managed.
Yeah.
I think he's been able to like really bring that state together.
Mhm.
And they were aggressive up front and early, right?
Right.
But
They're the first state to shut down the schools.
So he just started, and I think they just did a partial reopening of some businesses like yesterday, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a state like Ohio who like did all the thing, who did like everything the right, like let's say by the right way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he went ahead, and then they started doing some slow reopening. Then you got a state like Texas or Georgia, where things are a little bit different. Like the governor of Texas would say something about, and he's an older guy, he would like, a bad economy is worse than people dying, right? Or something like that. That's the kind of sentiment. Georgia opened up a week prior. So these are, and we thought that our friends in Georgia and Texas, and they're like, well, people here aren't even being tested. They don't even know how many cases they have because they just think it's all like bogus, and they'll just like worry about it. In light of that, do you think Illinois, because Illinois, I think they were a little bit behind Ohio, but for the most part, I think similar like outlook as far as how the governors kind of manage stuff. Based on what Ohio did yesterday, do you think maybe in a month or so we'd be ready for like a kind of a partial restart in Illinois? Like, or do you have an idea of when the citizens of Illinois could see a kind of restart?
So we have already, as of yesterday, we have a new stay-at-home order where we are partially reopening. So
is that in the village or the state?
The state of Illinois.
Okay.
So for example, non-essential retail stores, they're all open in terms of delivery and curbside pickup. We also asked, I think some of the public recreational areas are opening up. We're also the state of Illinois is mandating that everybody who's outside wear a mask. Everybody who's inside a store, like a grocery store, they wear a mask. So as we're opening back up, we're also implementing some of these public health measures, to make sure that we're not going back to, increasing the cases. And I think Ohio is similar in that way. I think the way it's portrayed a lot of times, because Illinois has a Democratic governor, Ohio has a Republican governor, that might play a part. But like you said, in terms of the way, we're opening back up is pretty similar.
Yeah, I think the only pushback I really seen is that there was a thing where the governor sent his wife to like Florida or something. And I don't know if that's like, I mean, it's like a little thing. Probably it'll blow over in a few days. You know what I'm saying? People are gonna like make their points about it and then move on.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, because I think people are just focused right now. So do you think like, do you see us like? I mean, do you think this is our new normal here in the U.S. as far as like, I mean, a lot of corporations are already realizing that, hey, we don't need to have an office anymore. But as far as even social distancing, Dr. Fauci said that our handshaking culture should be gone. We shouldn't be shaking hands anymore. Like, what do you think? Like, so I think most people would say that, yeah, we're probably going to be hit a new normal. But when do you think that'll actually kick in? When do you think we'll be back more or less in business under new standards in the state? Is that something you can say yet, or do you think?
So I think we were actually just touching on that while you were restarting your computer, in terms of changing our culture and changing. We're talking about ease and just that us as humans, we need that that what do you call touching, right? Touching is a part of how we show affection and how we show it's just a part of our culture. And so so that's already evolved. We've already been trained at this point within the last 43 days to not get close to people, not to keep some sort of physical distance. And we had just talked about doing that, the CDC put out a guideline of doing like the elbow touching versus the handshake. And those are things, as you had mentioned, being predicted that the cases are going to kick back up in the fall. So this is something long term that we need to think about in terms of how we just change who we are and how we're interacting with other people. You know, that's not within our household, basically. So yeah, I think as we were saying, it's not, you know, we're never going, I wouldn't say we're never going back to the way things were, but it's going to be a long time before we get there. And in that time, we're also retraining our mind in, you know, in how we're doing business, how we're showing affection to our family members and all of those things. And, you know, we're evolving at this point. So.
Yeah, like, so I mean, I definitely think that sometimes in the corporate world that the physical touching is a little, you know, that's something that I think we can do away with, right? Because it seems like things have gotten more and more lax in the corporate world prior to this pandemic, as far as like interactions with people, right? Where sometimes you lose that professionalism. So this might be a good thing in that sense. And I think as far as family goes, you know, I think people need to play it by ear. Do you think there's a rebound because as we open things back up, as people, because we realize people are still might be carrying the virus, there's going to be a spike there? Is that why you think there's a rebound effect in the fall, or why would you say that?
So I'm saying that based on, you know, some of the news reports, it's sounding like it's not because we're opening things back up, but just based on, you know, the nature of the flu season and how, you know, those tend to trend. I'm not really, I don't have the expertise to really talk on that too much, but that's my guess.
Right. And then do you have any? I'm going to turn it over to these guys to wrap up real quick. Do you have any closing thoughts before I turn it over to Mohammed and Rehan?
Yeah, so one thing I didn't touch on with the link to Bangladesh is, you know, Volunteers for Bangladesh, for example, they work within the rural areas. And a lot of times, as you were saying, you know, the government might have some great programs, but they don't necessarily reach, especially the rural areas. Part of the reason is the infrastructure. And so what Volunteers for Bangladesh has talked about doing is having some sort of funding available for those farmers of the scholarship recipients and also of, you know, the families of the schools that that they support. So they will have, you know, some access to funding through their local banks, and that would be another way. You know, that's another way of helping them. And then I think that the last thing I wanted to say is, as you were talking about changing the way we do business and the way we work and things like that, we're looking into more public-private partnerships. You know, we've realized, I think, more now than ever, that we're all interconnected. And so in order for all of us to thrive, we need to work together and, you know, just make sure we're not duplicating efforts and, you know, we're having the most impact.
Yeah, Mohammed, any closing thoughts from you?
I think what Shami mentioned, we'll be glad if we like the things you said about the volunteer for like Bangladesh. I think we have those like platforms among us, and plus we have those businesses that we can help actually, and we are like doing it already. So we are, as I said, that I'm working with now Action 8 and a few other non-profits like in Bangladesh now to help the farmers and like how can we ensure the supply chain for them. And we are also working with their businesses also, like the SMEs ones. So how can they can actually survive? So by connecting them with their like the e-commerces like in Dhaka, like the shopping centers, the grocery stores and everything, you know, so we can actually help in that sector with that. And apart from that, as Mahin bhai, that we mentioned about like how we're trying like fight the COVID. So we are into like few sectors and we're trying like do our job by staying in this sector, but we don't know about the other parts. So like how we're trying to like fight Corona, you know. So so like hopefully we can do much better. So let's see like what happens this month. So.
Thank you. And Rehan?
Yeah, I mean, I second what they've said, and also like to add that in this tough time, people like us, we are privileged, and we are actually sitting at home without not too much worry about our livelihood and about food and about money. So at this point, I think people who are privileged should really come up and help the people who are in need. and work with organizations such as Volunteer for Bangladesh and Action Aid, and there are other organizations doing very good work, and donate as much, or help them as much as they can, so that the needy people, the farmers, the villagers are the ones that get help and are able to survive in these tough times. So that is imperative from the people who are privileged, sitting at privileged positions.
Rehan, I actually I had a question for you about Crimson Cup, and you're under the pressure from the landlords and whatnot. So the land, okay, so let's say the landlords are you're giving you the pressure, and you guys have no revenue right now. You're not making business, and you've got to like eventually make a decision. You may have to make a decision about moving out, closing up some shops, right? But is there a demand? Like, are you gonna? Do you think, does the landlord know that he's gonna have another tenant in there, in this environment? Or like that's my understanding. Like that, why? Like, what incentive does he have to like push you out now? Because when the economy does pick back up in Bangladesh, you are a reliable tenant for him.
Yeah, I mean, so it is a very paradoxical thing to say. I mean, we don't know if he's going to find another tenant, or the places that we are in are prime locations, and a lot of people might have dreams of opening up cafes since many years and many months. They might have saved up, so it might be easier for him to get a tenant because our locations are prime locations. So a lot of people might want to take up those locations. So that is one thing we fear. And also the brand we build over 5 years, people know us, that we are situated in these locations. And one of the big reasons for our success are our locations. So for us, giving up those locations would be a really, really tough job. And I really hope our landlord is not listening to this conversation, because I don't want to seem weak in front of him. But, I also understand his situations, because he's someone whose livelihood also comes from, rents from the places he owns. So, so we'll have to come to a middle point in the coming days.
Right. Because I think, like, that's what Charmaine alluded to. Sometimes he might not have the stimulus packages, like that concept. I don't think that's maybe there in Bangladesh, where you get you just like have a package that'll like take care of you, a CARES Act or something like that. One thing you guys could do, I think, in this time, and I heard this, I was listening to a podcast or YouTube video where a lot of restaurants and the food industry, where their business is slowed down, they've used it to like ramp up their online marketing. So what you could do, like, this might be an opportunity to like spend some time and like make a Crimson Cup like Bangladesh YouTube channel or something, where you could educate, because I think you're still educating the country about coffee, about the different roasts and things like that. What's a mocha? What's a latte? What goes into it? Maybe show behind the scenes about like what goes into coffee, how you make, how to make certain drinks, right? Obviously they're not gonna start their own coffee shop in their apartment, because you guys have special equipment, right? But it might, like, I've seen that's been a way for people to get branding and stuff. So at least when you guys start back up, but right now you guys are thinking it could be like you're thinking 2020. It sounds to me like Bangladesh isn't going to be ready really until 2021.
No. I mean, for us to hit our normal sales, it's not going to be before 2021. I'm sure of that.
Right. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone taking some time out, especially in Ramadan. Everyone's busier and like sleep deprived and hungry. So I appreciate everyone coming on, and apologize for technical difficulties. It wasn't that bad. I guess if the Facebook live stream did not cut off, then that's good. Then hopefully the video will stay up for those. And if people can share it, and like it'll be up permanently, and I'll figure out a way to get it up on YouTube, hopefully within a couple of days or so, and then we can have a permanent link there. So I want to thank panelists Charmaine, Rehan, and Mohammed for coming on, and we will see.
It's a good time to cut out.
Facebook.
All right, nice meeting you guys. Take care.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
All right.
All right.